Kojo had always been a quiet soul, the kind of man who spoke more with his actions than his words. From their earliest days in the dusty streets of Kumasi, he and Amma had been inseparable. They played, laughed, and cried together. As the years passed, his feelings for her deepened, transforming from childhood affection into something far more profound. He loved her, not just the kind of love that fluttered for a moment and disappeared, but the kind that built itself patiently, brick by silent brick. But Kojo never found the courage to speak his heart. She knows, he often told himself. She can feel it. She must. But Amma, though warm and kind, was not a mind reader. She saw Kojo as her rock, her protector, her best friend. She didn't see the pain behind his smiles or the longing hidden in his thoughtful gestures. And then came Ya, Kojo's best friend, bold, charming, full of life. He joined their little circle with laughter and energy, and soon enough, Amma began to smile at Ya in ways Kojo had only dreamed of. One night, over a quiet meal beneath the stars, Ya confessed his feelings to Amma. "I've loved you from the moment I saw you," Ya said, taking her hand gently. Amma blinked, her heart pounding. "Ya, I never knew," she whispered. "And now you do," he smiled. "Let me make you happy." Kojo heard the news 3 days later. Amma and Ya were engaged. He locked himself in his room for hours, staring at the wall, the weight of silence crushing him. His heart broke in places he didn't know existed, but he said nothing. Not to Ya, not to Amma, not even to himself. He simply smiled and agreed to be Ya's best man. Kojo stood quietly as the wedding day approached. Ya had asked him, of all people, to be his best man. At first, Kojo wanted to refuse, to run, to disappear. But he looked into Ya's excited eyes and saw the joy of a man in love. And Kojo, despite his own pain, couldn't bring himself to hurt his friend. "Of course," Kojo said with a forced smile. "It would be an honor." Inside it was anything but. As the preparations rolled on, Kojo found himself helping to organize the event. Suits, guests, even the ring box. Every detail he perfected felt like another stab to the chest. The night before the wedding, Kojo stood on his porch alone, watching the moon. "You're a fool," he whispered to himself. He had dreams once. Dreams of walking Amma down the aisle, of building a home together. But now those dreams were slipping through his fingers like sand. Still, he stayed silent. The church was packed. The Church of Pentecost was dressed in ribbons and flowers. Voices lifted in song. Kojo stood beside Ya at the altar, trying to steady his heart. Then the moment came. The pastor asked for the rings. Kojo opened the box and froze. Empty. Not a single ring inside. Gasps filled the room. The ring bearer, a nervous teenage boy, swore he'd placed the rings in the box that morning. "I put them there. I swear," he cried, panicked. Chaos erupted. The pastor stepped back in shock. Amma's face turned pale as she stood frozen at the entrance of the aisle. Ya looked from Kojo to the box, disbelief all over his face. "Kojo," he whispered, "where are the rings?" I don't know," Kojo stammered, checking his pockets, the floor, everywhere. But the rings had vanished. Kojo didn't wait. He ran. Along with 2 friends, he left the church and rushed to Ya's house. Maybe the rings had been misplaced. Maybe something had gone wrong in the final rush. They tore through the house, under beds, behind sofas, in side drawers. Nothing. Kojo's heart thudded in his chest. He wasn't just worried for Ya. He was terrified for Amma. She didn't deserve this humiliation. He stood in the middle of the empty bedroom, breathing hard. "I didn't do this," he muttered to himself. "God knows I didn't." One of the friends looked at him. "Kojo, are you okay?" He nodded, though his body trembled. Back at the church, whispers filled the air. Some said it was a sign. Others called it sabotage. But no one had answers. Only questions. Kojo returned, defeated, sweat dripping from his brow. "I searched everywhere," he told Ya. "They're gone." Amma sat alone in the bride's room. tears clinging to her lashes. Ya held her hands, but he couldn't meet her eyes. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "Did someone do this to us on purpose?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "I don't know, but it's like a curse." Their families huddled. The elders, desperate to salvage what they could, approached the pastor. "Please," Amma's uncle begged, "bless this union without the rings. Let not this shame destroy what God has joined." The pastor hesitated, then nodded solemnly. "Marriage is not about rings, but about hearts." He blessed them. The choir sang, but the celebration felt hollow. There were no cheers, no dance, only silence and stolen glances. Everyone in Kumasi would remember this wedding, not for its beauty, but for the mystery of the missing rings. A week passed, but the whispers didn't die. From hair salons to food joints, everyone in town had a theory. "Spiritual attack," one woman said. "Somebody didn't want this wedding to happen," another claimed. But no one knew the truth, except Kojo, and even he wasn't sure anymore. He smiled in public, held conversations, even laughed sometimes. But inside he was crumbling. The day of the wedding replayed in his mind like a broken record. Did I do it? He wondered. Did I, in some twisted way, make this happen? The question haunted him more than the silence ever did. Ya, though married, was far from at peace. The humiliation burned within him like fire. He couldn't forget the looks, the whispers. So one morning, he rose before the sun and traveled deep into the bush outside Kumasi. There, before the sacred ancestral stones, he stood barefoot. He brought eggs, schnapps, and a calabash of water. "Spirits of my fathers," he said, voice shaking, "I did no wrong, but someone wronged me." He poured libation, cracked eggs, and cursed the unknown thief. May they never find peace. May they search forever for what they stole from me. Nature fell silent. No wind, no birds. Even the trees stood still. Ya left that place with fire in his heart, unaware of what his curse had truly done. Kojo knew nothing about the ritual, but in the weeks that followed, something changed. He began collecting rings. First, he wore one or two, then more. "Kojo, what's with all the rings?" someone asked at the market. "I'm searching for the real one," he replied. "When I find it, I'll throw the rest away." People laughed, until it wasn't funny anymore. Soon, Kojo's hands were full. Gold, silver, copper, even cheap plastic rings stacked over each other. Some were too small and dug into his flesh. Others, so tight they cut off his circulation. His fingers swelled, turned purple raw. "Kojo, let us help," his mother pleaded. "No," he barked. "Don't touch them. I'll know the real one when I see it." At night, he wandered barefoot, digging through gutters, whispering to himself, "Where are you hiding?" Ya could no longer watch his friend waste away. He took Kojo to a powerful traditional priest outside Kumasi. The shrine was quiet, the air thick with incense. The priest looked at Kojo, then spoke slowly. "This is not madness. The spirit of the ring is in him. Until it is found or released, he will search forever." Everyone went quiet. Kojo stared into space, muttering, sliding yet another ring onto his bleeding finger, and no one could say a word. The traditional priest's words echoed in the shrine like thunder. "The spirit of the ring," he said again, "binds him to what was taken. Until the truth is faced, he will not rest." Ya stepped forward, confused. "What truth?" The priest stared at him. "The man you cursed is your friend." Kojo took the rings. Gasps filled the air. "Not from hatred," the priest continued, "but from love buried so deep it turned into quiet destruction." Kojo didn't move. He just sat on the ground, eyes distant, twisting a ring endlessly. Ya's knees buckled. No, this can't be true." The priest nodded slowly. "He never stopped loving Amma, but he never told her. He helped you marry the woman he loved." Ya stared at Kojo, who still didn't speak. His fingers bled. His soul bled more. "I cursed him," Ya whispered, tears forming. "I called the gods on my own brother." You cursed love, the priest said, and love answered. Ya wept openly. I should have known, he cried. I should have seen it. Ya sat under a tree outside the shrine, staring into the past. He remembered when they were boys, how Kojo always stood by Alma, always protected her, how his smile faded when Ya proposed. He remembered the wedding day, how Kojo had searched more desperately than anyone. It all made sense now. He had trusted Kojo blindly, and Kojo had quietly broken that trust. But not out of hate, out of heartbreak. Ya told Alma everything. She listened in silence, a hand over her heart, tears falling before she could stop them. Kojo loved me, she asked, voice breaking. More than I ever did, Ya said quietly. Alma covered her mouth and wept. She remembered the nights he waited for her outside her shop, the way he fixed her gait, how he smiled when Ya kissed her hand. He had loved her in silence, and now silence had destroyed him. Kojo's mother knelt beside him, brushing his hair gently. My son, she whispered, come back to us. But Kojo didn't look at her. He was now a vessel of pain. He no longer saw people, only rings. Let me go, he muttered. I haven't found it yet. She wept and kissed his hands, swollen and broken beneath layers of metal. Please let him go, she prayed aloud. Whoever is holding his soul, release my son. The town of Kumasi buzzed with news of the curse. Some pitied Kojo. Others said he brought it on himself. But many simply didn't understand how love, silent love, could drive a man to such despair. He should have spoken, they said. She would have chosen him. But it was too late for what-ifs. Then one morning, Kojo was gone. He had left without shoes, without food, just his hands and his madness. He walked for days. No one knew where he was headed, only that he kept saying, she's here. I'll find her. He turned stones, dug soil, stared into rivers. Each time he saw his reflection, he whispered, not yet. That's not the one. Kojo's journey took him all the way to Koforidua, over 200 kilometers from home. There in the dusty market he wandered, hands full of rings, skin cracked and bleeding. Children ran from him. Vendors avoided him. But he kept searching. Where are you hiding? He whispered to the ground. Some said he was cursed. Others said he was haunted by love too deep to understand. A visitor from Accra passed through Koforidua and saw him. I saw a man, she later wrote. He looked like a ghost in human form. She watched him dig in the market soil, talking to a ring in his palm. When she asked about him, an old woman told her the story about a wedding, a betrayal, a curse, and a love that never spoke. She cried that day, not for the man she met, but for the silence that ruined him. Out of compassion, a group of locals tried to help. They held Kojo down and removed every ring from his fingers, one by one. He screamed in agony, not from pain but from loss. For a few days after, he was calm. He even bathed. He smiled. People thought he was healing. But then he was seen again with more rings than before. It was like something inside him refused peace. One day, Alma traveled to Koforidua. She found him sitting under a tree, whispering to a stone. She called his name, Kojo. He looked up slowly. His eyes were sunken, but for a moment they focused. Alma, he whispered. Yes, she said, tears running down her cheeks. It's me. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time in years he cried. Alma knelt beside him and held his face. I know now, she said. I know everything. Kojo sobbed like a child. I didn't mean to ruin it, he cried. I wanted to be the one. I know, she said. I forgive you. Kojo collapsed into her arms, holding on like a drowning man. It was the first time in years he felt warmth. That night, he slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. No murmurs, no rings, no digging, just sleep. Alma stayed by his side, holding his hand. In the early hours of the morning, he stirred. Thank you, he whispered, for seeing me, even if it's too late. And then he closed his eyes. He never opened them again. Kojo was buried in Koforidua. They placed a simple ring in his coffin, silver, plain, unadorned, a symbol of the one he never gave, the love he never voiced. People wept, not just for the man but for the silence. The town spoke of him for years. The man who loved too deeply, stayed too silent, and died carrying the weight of unspoken words. And so his story ends, not in victory, not in union, but in truth. To the men reading this, speak. Love is not a battle to be won in silence. It is a truth to be voiced. And to the women, listen. Look beyond gestures. Ask questions. To everyone, forgive quickly. Speak boldly. Love truly. Let Kojo's story not just be a tale, but a warning. Because unspoken love can become a curse. And silence, when held too long, becomes a grave.